listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. Today is September 7th, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Thursday?
It's hot, man.
It is. It's excruciatingly
I'm not sure,
hot. I'm with you.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's in many ways. It's boiling outside my window. This hopefully last gasp of summer weather. We got the Druids of the Flame all over live.
Yep.
And we got some hot off the presses 10.2 announcement today. So
That's
we got
right.
a lot to talk about this week. We're in this spot where we have a brand new patch on live servers, and we'll get into it. Everything you need to know about it. But we also we knew that we've been talking for weeks about how they got to be announcing 10.2 PTR soon or whatever. This time they went a different way than with 10.0.7 and 10.1, where we don't have sort of dueling PTRs and two patches, in development at the same time, which I think was good. Even as somebody who's a very engaged player and stays on top of all this stuff and tries to untangle it for an audience, that was a little much. So now, there's much less confusion. We have a brand new patch out this week. There's new stuff to do in the game, and we should see PTR probably within hours of us finishing this recording. So, it's the delineation there is clear. There are not three versions of Dragonflight floating around at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's so I do want to talk about what happened last week in the game before we dive too deep into what's going on this week. But yes, you're right. Hot off the presses, we intentionally delayed the episode till Thursday later in the afternoon to make sure that we could get the full news for you this week as far as this announcement goes and start talking about it now. And they ended that announcement with, PTR coming up this week. So we're expecting today or tomorrow, we will see that PTR go live. And then obviously on next week's episode, which will also be on a Thursday, in case someone is curious, we will have all that information for you. So we'll see how, all of this rolls out. But before we dive too deep into this, Jason, did you get up to anything in World of Warcraft last week you want to highlight here at the top of the show?
Yeah, I did. It was a very light week. Holiday weekend. I had a bunch of social commitments Saturday and Sunday. So, also I didn't want to ask people to attempt to show up to raid on a holiday Sunday. So, it was a very light week. But we did some heroic raid, and I did get a plus 20 in time. That was really about it for the week. And I feel like for our team, season 2 is just about over. I had very light attendance this week. We didn't even raid last night. I had signups that didn't show up. So I had exactly 10 people, and it was like, well, we could try to do achievements with a very light crew, but is that worth it? Is it going to be possible or fun to do the achievements with so few people? And then so many people are going to need to do them again anyway. So we ended up just doing dungeon achievements. Remember those? We're doing some of that, and just doing some keystones and whatever. It's kind of incredible how fast everything has dropped off for my team at this point. Just people signing up and not showing up, people just ghosting us basically. We were on the verge of getting, Mythic Experiments down, but I think that has evaporated. A bunch of my best players are just like, yeah, I'm not coming back until the next season.
Summer, man.
I could leverage, but it's the end of the summer now, and now it's like I guess people are just burnt or at the point where they're not having fun, and I mean that happens.
Back to school, possibility too.
Yeah. I mean, people's commitments and stuff change, but I could leverage the wider Zeros to Heroes Guild maybe to say, hey, do people want to come Mythic raid? But I would legitimately have 6-7 spots or more every night to fill. And if it's not the direction my team really wants to go, I feel like that sort of starts eroding the identity of who our team is and what our kind of social group is. So I'm kind of hesitant to do that. I'm fine to chill and just kind of have fun with farm bosses and hang out for a couple hours and play some WoW. Plus, we'll get into 10.1.7 a lot, and there's really not a lot of meat for endgame players, to be honest. But I do have an army of alts that I want to gear up. So maybe, alt stuff starts to come into play because there's a really fast on-ramp into normal rating and above with 10.1.7. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you must have gotten into some of that 10.1.7 stuff the past couple of days since we were already a little bit into the week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think let's talk about that as we kind of go through the patch notes for
Sure.
10.17, because I can kind of chime in with stuff that I've been doing or that I've noticed as well. I want to call out Secrets of Azeroth, because I don't think we'll really have a chance anywhere else in the show to do that. This event is actually super cool. I don't know what to expect, but this is like old school questing where they give you a little nugget and you have to just figure it out, right? It's like there's not like waypoints on your map. You have to pay attention to your environment. Early on, you get a toy that's like the thinking cap, and then the thinking cap has coordinates on it that you can calibrate so that you can use that to solve the clues. You get this torch toy that like reacts when it's near some kind of magical item. I got a little bit behind over the weekend because I was so busy, so I had to do like 3 days worth at once, but I think I'm just 1 day behind at this point. I'm really enjoying this event, and it's a lot. It could have just all been quests like, here, go do this, go do that. I think this was a nice way to just do something different in the game. It's really separate from any main storyline or anything. You know, it's just tied into sort of the concept of Azeroth itself and the people who live there and maybe stuff that exists there and people who are interested in some of the stuff. But, you know, it tells kind of a cool story, and I really like the mechanics. I mean, I'm not figuring this stuff out all by myself. If I get stuck, like, I'm going to Wowhead because I only have so much time to get involved in it, right? But like, I'm making a good effort to try to figure it out, and it's fun. It really does feel like very old school in terms of questing, so I like that. The other thing I wanted to bring up that is not really specific to new patch or anything is Trading Post. We were talking about this when we saw the announcement for the class specific gear, and we were saying, well, probably these come with color variants, because if you look at the Paladin gear, the armor is black and red and gold, like Tier 2 Judgment, and the weapons are two-tone purple and white, like the Judgment recolor in Burning Crusade dungeons. So it stands to reason that they come with tints that, you know, match each other so you can put it all together. This is not the case.
Nope.
You get the black and red and gold and white armor, and you get the two-tone purple weapons, and they do not go together. So just, I don't know. If you were like, well, it doesn't show on the vendor, so maybe it doesn't. And I think that's a mistake. I assume that Blizzard's going to extract another 950 tender from me for the other color variants in another year or whatever. Kind of a bummer. I feel like it's a real missed opportunity. What's the point of giving me these cool, unique cosmetics if I can't use them together? That was kind of a bummer. I think the designs look really cool. I'm not upset that I have them, and I don't know how much it really changes the plan that I have with, you know, buying the stuff for the tank classes, but I just don't understand why they did that. Make it one cohesive look so you can use all the pieces together, or give us multiple options so we can mix and match with other existing sets. That was, when I looked at it, I thought that's what the point was, and I guess that was not the point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought that showing the two different color variations was like, hey, here's some possibilities of what you're going to be able to do with this. And I was like, oh, that's neat. Those are just showing us one set. They're showing us, you know, all the different variants of what you can sort of play around with and see what you want to do with it. Nope, you're right. It's probably going to end up being hey, if you want the other color variants, you know, get ready for next year, because next year we're going to do the other color variants on the same set, or we're going to find out that they're put in through a totally different source inside the game, or maybe this is their way of extracting money because the ones that match are going to cost money to buy, and that's what they're going to end up doing. Like, you never know. Like, it's totally up in the air, but I do wish that it had been consistent and it was something that you could just pick up and dive into and have, you know, because you save, they gave us enough warning for you to save at least a month of stuff towards this, so if not 2. So you're just in that case of like, all right, well, and you can freeze stuff, so you absolutely could have picked up the entire Paladin chunk of gear or whatever it is when it rolled around. I don't understand why it doesn't match. I'm with you, man. I don't get it, but yeah,
it's kind of nitpicky. I mean, like, all the stuff is just included with the subscription and with playing the game, you know, and just doing some very routine stuff. It's not like it's hard to fill up your traveler slots.
It's just a decision you can't really rationalize, right? You just can't really get your head around it. That's all. That's all it is.
I mean, part of the fun of collecting cosmetics is making your character look cool. And if you're like, I want to collect all this stuff, and then you put it all on, then your character doesn't look cool, probably. So, and it's a real bummer when I think about the monk stuff, because that's what I was really excited about. And the armor is very drab, and the weapons are very colorful, and it's that kind of white, red, green, and gold look from Mogushan Palace. And the fact that that's not going to be on the armor to start just really bums me out. It just kind of, it warps the whole thing a little bit. So I don't know. hopefully they'll, I don't know, communicate about that or something, or show us, that, hey, these other variants are going to be available through some other method at some point.
Yeah, it was strange. So I mean, yeah, you're right. We're in a wait and see as to how that all plays out and what their plan is for it. So we'll find out. But until then, let's dive into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. So we start talking about some 10.1.7 and more 10.2 stuff. All right, this week is the Wrath of Lich King Time Walking event, where the Sign of the Scourge is up, where Wrath of Lich King reputation gains from combat and quests is increased by 50%, as well as characters level 60 and above have access to Azul Narub, Gundrak, Halls of Lightning, Forge of Souls, Nexus, and Utgard Keep as Time Walking versions that drop 389 eye level gear. It's also on the Adventure track, so it'd be one of 8 Adventure, which you can then put up to, I think it's 412 or 411. Is what that rolls up to. Vendor for Time Walking sells 372 eye level gear, and this also means that Ulduar Time Walking is back. That means that you can get 415 versions of Ulduar loot on max level characters by bringing in some players to the Ulduar Time Walking. You can also earn the 10 and 25 man achievements because they've been consolidated and are completable inside Time Walking. So if you want some of those achievements from Ulduar, be sure you get a group of friends together or hop into one of the pre-made groups and dive into some Ulduar Time Walking. The raid quest apparently is repeatable for additional loot and chances at cosmetics. I didn't realize this, Jason, but this is one of those snazzy things that you can do.
Yeah, this came in with this came in with 10.1.5 actually. It gets so hard to remember now that we're getting patches every 2.5 months. Yep. But yeah, because this was because we did Black Temple like 3 weeks ago. With my group, and yeah, I went out to the NPC out in Shatrath that you use to queue into the Time Walking raid, and the quest was there, and then I picked it up and I shared it with everybody, and I got like a pet I didn't have. Nobody got like Ashes of Alar, but we heard from a bunch of people when Black Temple rolled around that they did get that. I assume that means you have a chance at Invincible out of this box. I'm not saying you're gonna get Invincible out of this box.
I'm saying it's Mim's head. That's what I'm saying it is.
Could be
I
both.
think it's
Why not both?
I mean, yeah, why not both? There's absolutely a chance that it is, but yes, I feel like this is potentially a Mimron's head, which would be very cool for anyone. That's one of those mounts that's just amazing to have. So, yes,
yeah,
let us know.
I mean, there's a lot of cool cosmetics from Wrath era, so I assume that's what would be in the box from the Ulduar raid quest. Don't forget to pick it up or bug your raid leader to share it with you if you go do this. I'm going to try to get a group together for it on Sunday because it's just chill and fun. Ulduar is not my favorite Time Walking raid. I kind of have always hated Flame Leviathan. I don't like fights that take you so far out of your character like that.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I've also found the Ulduar overall in Time Walking, it's basically the 25-man version. So it's not as like welcoming to smaller groups as say Black Temple. Because Black Temple didn't really have that much of a split. There are basically no mechanics as we recognize them in 2023 in Black Temple, right? In Ulduar, the way stuff scaled up, like if you have an 11 or 12 player group and you're doing, 25-man versions of bosses, some stuff gets a little weird. But, I think that making the raid quest repeatable per event was a huge upgrade because we hadn't done Time Walking raids in forever. There was no point to.
Yeah.
Normal mode loot, if it's like the first week of a season or something and we're kind of, brick walled for the week, then maybe if it lines up that way. But, other than that, there was just no reason to do it. Having the quest in there, and it's like you could get something really cool if you hang out, for a couple hours with your buddies and do some, chill raiding. Like that's a really big incentive, I think. That changes my whole viewpoint on it. So, yeah, check it out for the rest of this reset if you're interested. And this is it's great for leveling for the dungeon queue if you're 60 plus. I'm working on my rogue now that 10.1.7's out and trying to get up to level cap, so I might dip into some of these for leveling because these are fast dungeons, right? Wrath was kind of the era where they were like, what if you could do a dungeon on your lunch break?
Yeah.
Right? Like that was sort of what it went to versus, the original ethos of like, what if you were in a dungeon all night long for 4 nights this week? So these are fast dungeons and they're they're cool. I mean, these are Wrath is obviously iconic among WoW expansions. It was one of the best eras of the game. I think just anybody who played it would say that. And so yeah, I haven't had a chance to dip in there this week, but I probably will before the end of the week just to bang out some levels on the road.
Yeah. In general, I'm probably not going to dive into the time walking very much, but I do feel like the time walking in general is something that's worthwhile checking out for some folks who are interested in doing it. Outside of that, of course, you got to pick up your Aiding the Accord quest. You also have the Fighting Its Own reward, completing 5 heroic dungeons for 415 eye-level trophy chest or 15 Drake's Shadowflame crest, as well as some more reputation. The Comp Stomp is the brawl for the week. Everyone's favorite brawl is back. Arathi Basin against AI bots. This, of course, comes along with the Something Different quest that winning a brawl gets you some Marks of Honor, Conquest, and Honor. This is the fastest you will ever be able to earn honor in the game, is during Comp Stomp. Basically, it's you queuing in against an AI opponent, and your team just rolls over the other team. It is super fun. It is a time where you just get to melt people, and it feels amazing. And yeah, often you push the AI all the way back into their base and beat them up, and it feels really good. Or you get 3 warlocks on the AI team, and they just start one-shotting individuals, and people start panicking. I mean, it's one or the other. That tends to be what ends up happening. So I think it's worth checking out, and it's always my favorite brawl for people to dive into.
Yeah, it's super fun. I love this one. And this is it's the brawl for people who don't PvP like me. So this is your week to get in there and just own Arathi Basin. It's all yours for the taking.
I will say it's also the brawl for people who do PvP, because this is how they earn all their honor, is they just go in and queue this over and over and over again and get a ton of honor, and so they really enjoy it. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's just welcoming to everyone, because it's easy honor grind, and it's kind of fun in its own little way and quirky. So I definitely think it's worth checking out. Weekly world bosses, you got Zakali Elders, the big Dejarin duo down in Zeralek Caverns. They're dropping 415 eye-level plate, shoulders and waist, male feet and helm, and leather chest and wrist, as well as Bazuel, the dreaded flame, the fire proto-dragon in Azure Span, dropping some 395 loot. And if you're looking for any of this, be sure you get out and knock those bosses out. Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Fortified, Incorporeal, and Sanguine, meaning non-boss enemies have more health and deal increased damage. While in combat, incorporeal beings periodically appear and attempt to weaken players, and when slain, non-boss enemies leave behind a pool of lingering ichor that heals your enemies, or their allies, and damages players. So, yeah, this is just kind of the big garbage. I hate this. This is terrible week. Everyone should not, at Mythic Plus, we should protest. There should be a strike against Mythic Plus for the week, because not only is Trash going to take longer, and obviously Sanguine and Fortified do sync up together, because Trash has more health, which Sanguine heals in a percentage basis, so it heals even worse. As much as you can avoid sort of moving Sanguine around as far as puddles go, and trying to manage that, and puddles don't last as long as they used to, it is still a factor that you're playing into your route for the entire week, plus Fortified making everything slower to get through. You're also dealing with Incorporeal, which Jason has already highlighted as one of those affixes that just makes everything worse when it comes to dealing with boss fights and splitting attention, and them generating or spawning farther out from your group, and people not be able to get to them in time or deal with them fast enough. And it's going to be happening during Trash with Sanguine puddles. I'm assuming Incorporeal that's spawning inside a Sanguine puddle isn't invulnerable. I don't know. It's a thing. But yeah, it's an ugly week. Jason, do you disagree?
Not really. It's not like horrendous, but it's not a great week. It's very sloggy Trash. And a thing about Incorporeal that I am really starting to dislike, I guess,
traps you in combat.
No, it doesn't actually. This one is better than I kind of feel like this one. Well, they have their ups and downs, but Incorporeal. The nice thing is that, when you leave combat, these things just pop. They disappear. So all you really got to do is drop some kind of hard CC on them.
Right.
The problem is that we are not really wired to use hard CC, and a lot of builds get kind of messed up if you have to build into hard CC. It's kind of a hard sell this week. Okay, you need to take your hard CC, but then I won't be able to do my build. I'll be missing this thing that I would rather have to kill stuff with. I mean, you can interrupt and stun these things, but they're alive for like 12 seconds, so they really require a lot of babysitting. I mean, I guess if your timing is good, if you catch them with like 2 stuns, they'll pop before they get a cast off, right? If you like wait till they're about to cast and stun them and then do it again. But I mean, it's very distracting, right? It's going to affect your builds, and it's going to affect your attention, and they do pop up during boss fights. The cast they get off is quite debilitating. I think like one of them getting a cast off is not necessarily going to result in an insta wipe, but it's not pretty. You don't want them going off.
50% reduced haste, isn't it? Is it for each cast? Yeah. I was trying to remember correctly. Yeah, it's 50% reduced haste for each cast. When the biggest thing that's going to kill you is your healer not being able to heal because it just takes too long, even just for their global cooldowns to roll over, for them to be able to get healing out. So yeah, it's a problem.
I mean, it only lasts for like 6 seconds or something. I want to say, I don't know, my math might be off, but like it's survivable if you have like an oopsie here and there, but you want to have a plan to avoid that, right? Because you don't want these things going off. And Sanguine's not great. Like Fort Sanguine can be kind of rough because you're just in combat for so long, and then the mobs have so much health, right? And the Sanguine puddles, it's a percentage heal. So on Fortified, they get way more health, which is more damage you have to do back out of ticks of the Sanguine puddles than they do on Tyrannical Week. So
right.
That's a little bit more dungeon dependent, right? Because in some dungeons you have bigger open spaces to deal with it. In some dungeons you don't have as many mobs that are gonna stand there and hard cast or auto attack you from range. So that's a little bit better. Plus, if you have tools to displace them, I mean, it is going to slow you down a bit. Even if you handle it really well, you're probably going to get some Sanguine healing ticks here and there, and that's more damage you have to pump out. So, I don't know. I mean, I did a couple dungeons this week. I didn't think it was horrendous. Like we got what did we do? I think we did an Underrot 20 in time. And then last night we did a 21 Nelth's Lair, which we were like a boss behind the timer, but we had so many incidental deaths. We went in and started the timer, and then a bunch of people went, "Hey, what are the affixes this week?" Including one of our Ret Paladins who was not spec'd into like Repentance, which is really good on Incorporeal Week, right? But we just didn't have access to it then for the rest of the dungeon. So we had to kind of improvise. And on the 21, like that's a little bit above our head to like not go in actually set up. Like my healer had like wrong gear on and we just weren't paying attention. So you can't do that and just like stumble your way through a 21. The fact that we were only a boss behind kind of speaks to the fact that it's not a horrendous week. It's just, if you want to succeed, you have to have a plan before you start, and you have to have a plan for each pull. Otherwise, Incorporeal and Sanguine are really going to punish you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving on from that, I guess we dive into Secrets of Azeroth, which is wrapping up on the 14th. So 1 week left of Secrets of Azeroth stuff coming out. I know I keep seeing little bumps inside of the creator Discord of today's clue is, and trying to get people to advertise. So it's kind of neat to see that happening. Darkmoon Fair. Sorry.
One thing. Let me just break in here. Just one thing to point out is like, once the stuff is out, it's out, and you can do it. So if you didn't start it yet, and you're like, well, I'm already a week behind. Like you can go start from day one right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's just in the game now once it's released. So there's not really time pressure. It's just there's going to be a new daily chapter every day through Thursday the 14th. So keep that in mind. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a change of pace thing to do in WoW. I've really been enjoying it, but if you're behind, don't feel bad. There's guides on Wowhead and stuff. You can look it up and figure out that thing you're stuck on, or just hop in and get started. So I highly encourage you. This kind of weird ethereal kind of stuff is something that I think WoW has done really well, and this is over the years with the secrets and everything like that, and this is just a different and much more focused kind of implementation of it that I think is worth your time.
I guess what I kind of like about this is it feels less like you're required to go to a Discord to try and solve things with people, even though that was neat and cool with some of the previous ones. I like more of this being involved in game, and as you said, if it's just eating up too much of your time, you can go to Wowhead and kind of find a solve to something. I like that feature. I feel like it's nice when it's not, okay, none of it is clues in game. You basically have to just find this rock that's underwater underneath this cliff, and the only way to even know it exists in any way, shape, or form is if someone tells you from an out of character, out of game perspective, right? And you're like, well, that's less interesting to me than basically being given, as you said, like basically a secret decoder ring that's going to help you work your way through all of these puzzles that are popping up. I think that's kind of a neat way to do it.
Yeah. It's like explicitly in the game. The game does point you towards how to get started, right?
Yeah.
But then it doesn't hold your hand through each step of the process. So it's cool. It's like it's sort of like the secret design in some ways that we've seen since going back to like Legion, I really want to say, maybe BFA, mixed with sort of how quests used to work in a pre-quest helper kind of world where it was like, here's some information, go out in the world and figure out what we meant.
Yeah.
But I mean, that might sound a little daunting maybe, but I've found it to be really fun.
Yeah. Darkmoon Faire is live through the 9th, so this coming Saturday, be sure that you are taking advantage of getting at least your profession points out of it, your knowledge. If not, then, obviously you also have the reputation bonuses involved in it. You have the experience bonus involved in it. You got the races you can do, the achievements, the dirigible mount you can buy, the tokens you can earn, the PvP token stuff you can earn, the stuff towards your trading post, that actual stuff towards your trading post for going to go see the band or participating in Darkmoon Faire that way. All those things are happening right now. So if you want to take advantage of this limited window where we get Darkmoon Faire this month before next, be sure you're taking advantage before Saturday. Yeah.
Get your knowledge. Don't forget, if you still need profession knowledge, this is an easy way to get a couple extra points. Or
definitely,
if you're not somebody like me who was like with the week or and trying to get every single point I could every week since November, but there's like a particular thing you want to be able to make, then you can get a couple extra points easy this week.
Yeah. All right. Advance your scholarly pursuits with the new High Scholars Pack. This is what we basically called out that was going to happen. Basically, the endless pursuit of higher knowledge is its own reward, but you can dress the part when you purchase the High Scholars Pack, available for a limited time. You get to advance your scholarly pursuits. You'll look quite brilliant in the mystical High Scholars Arcana Transmog set, while you while away the hours deep in tomes and librams of many an arcane and Athenium. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so basically this is 500 tender and head, shoulder, chest, waist, feet, hand, cloak transmog. The transmog is kind of cool. I mean, this is one of the better ones that they've sold. I'll give them credit for that for sure. It is a purple mog, basically, with a shoulder glow. It's got the eye on it for,
it's got that real Kirin Tor vibes on the front of it and the belt and everything. It's got the eyeball motif. Yeah.
I mean, it's what we called out. They're gonna put out these sets that people want to buy for, the currency, and then they're gonna put out store stuff that gets you currency. So here it is.
Yeah, I a lot of times we don't put cash shop stuff on here because I think it's just a circular conversation. Also, I don't really care to advertise Blizzard's business model very much. I like talking about playing the game or how the game gets made, maybe, but not how it gets sold. But I felt like we should just bring this up because, when we had the thing, it was last month or whatever it was like $5 or something, and you got the wrist corsages and the 250 tender. I'm like, who cares? This is starting to rub me the wrong way because this is a $25 purchase and it's 500 tender. You're doing it in the window where you have these highly sought after items that are the class specific armor and weapon sets. And, the 500 tender, there's a staff that matches it. And all this stuff is going to be on the trading post again someday, at least 90 days from the end of September. I don't know. I don't feel like this is a good use of the trading post. This is starting to lean into the area of you're really manipulating people here.
You can use the word predatory. It's fine. You can use the word predatory.
I think it is a bit because it's like, okay, this is a $25 purchase. This is, a budget game, right? This is a sale price of an entire game. And people are just looking at that tender going, yeah, I just want that, right? Or the other thing is the staff that goes with the set is on the trading post this month, and it's 500 tender.
Yep.
So I don't love that synergy with the cash shop and the trading post. I felt like the last time we brought this up that it was not particularly odious or even really worth mentioning, and we kind of just bring it up because it was a thing that people were talking about a lot, and I was like, for 250 tender for $5 with these 2 little mogs, like, is this really worth it? I don't know. But man, this is a different level. And
well, they ramped it up, right? It was $5 for 250 tender. Now it's $25 for 500 tender. And you're like, whoa, wait a second here. I get that I'm getting 3 more transmog pieces, but you were giving me 2 transmog pieces and 250 tender for $5. Now you want me to pay essentially almost 3 times that to be able to get something that should have been 2 times that in reward? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. It's like the mobile game model where it's like when you start playing the game, like, hey, here's a beginner's pack. It's $1.99. You can buy it for 48 hours. And then you either buy or don't buy that, and you play the game next week. And it's like, hey, here's a pack for $10. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. I'm expecting next month or 2 months from now, we'll get like a $35 mount with 1,000 tender. And then there'll be a mog set that matches the mount that's 1,000 tender.
I am fully waiting. There will, at some point, I'm going to predict it now. At some point, there will be a for me, $100 or $89 pack. One of those like very high end that will be like mount, transmog set, weapons, and 2,000 tender or something is what it's going to be. It's going to be $100 is what it's going to end up being. And you'll be like, okay.
Yep.
I totally predict it'll happen.
I think it's just like sneaking, cash directly to tender into the shop, and the other cosmetics are sort of incidental. That's what it feels like with this set to me. Like, it's a pretty nice set, but unless you're like really into that, arcane vibe, that like I don't think the set is really anything special. It's okay. I like it. I mean, it's nice looking.
I like it.
If this was a free Twitch drop, then I would watch Twitch, and you know what I mean? It probably will be 2 years from now or something.
It probably will, yeah.
Anyway, I felt like it was worth throwing this in here since we kind of made a joke about it last week when we were talking about impending trading posts, and because we had a discussion about it before, and we're seeing this trend evolve and kind of rapidly expand. And I mean, look, if you like it and you think it's worth your $25, then I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong to do that.
No, go out.
You should do whatever makes you happy. I mean, joy is fleeting in this life, and you should take it wherever you can get it. But I don't like this business model.
Here's the other side of it. All right. It's going to leave the shop on the October 31st. It's going to be available sometime, after 3 months from now is what they're sort of giving. They're giving anyone who actually chooses to spend money on it to purchase it 3 months at least of exclusive, I'm the only one who can wear this time. And after those 3 months, it will make the rotation into the trading post for the people who want to pick it up. I felt this way about the Diablo 3 auction house and about everything else, is that realization of there's going to be people out there who don't have the time to play the game enough to earn the tender to be able to buy all the rewards that they want. And this is an option for them to go, you know what? I work hard every day to earn money. I can choose to spend that money, that $25, to buy this set because I like this set, which gets me the weapon for the 500 tender plus the set itself. And now I have the whole set complete, and I don't have to worry about in 3+ months' time buying this set then, is where their brain is kind of at. And I do not judge those people. I absolutely respect that you work hard and you choose to spend your money however you want to. What I don't like is when games start to become more predatory. And I feel like this is leaning into that. This should be a $15 thing to me, in my opinion. I think that would be pushing it. I think $15 is a decent range if it came with the weapon as well, as opposed to the 500 tender for the weapon, which you could argue, is it coming with the weapon as well? I dislike that all of these games, Diablo 4, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, they're all drifting into that. To buy something that I would think should cost between $10 and $15 is costing $25 to $40. That's what they're all doing. And I don't understand why that price increase has happened, but I do feel like it's getting to the point where, as Jason mentioned, you could buy another video game or you could buy this transmog set. And that feels very weird to me, that's where the industry is moving towards, because it's almost like we're not rewarding developers for producing the game that they produce. We're rewarding companies for how much money they can drag out of the stuff that they just sort of chose to limit off from that game. So it's like, yeah, buy the game for $70, and that's not actually our market of how we make money. You buying the game for $70 doesn't even cost development cost. Doesn't even cover development costs. What we're really going to make money off of is all of this cosmetic stuff that we know you're going to want set at prices that cost almost the same amount as the game. You're like, oh, okay, that just seems predatory to me. But, it is what it is. We'll see where this goes from here. This is just the tip of the iceberg for World of Warcraft dipping their toe into it. We know they did the Helms ages ago, and they didn't choose to explore that too much farther. We'll see what happens with this whole tender stuff, and we'll, let you know if it's starting to spiral a bit. For now, it's like, ooh, I see the tip of an iceberg. How bad is this? We don't know
right.
yet, right? That's really what this is.
I really don't have a problem with cash shop cosmetics. I bought them. If something tickles me, like, whatever, I'll buy it. I think it's the synergy here with the trading post and the thing that's supposed to be like, well, just play the game and you earn these cool rewards just for staying subscribed and investing time in the game. Like, I thought when trading post came in, that was cool. I don't know. There's something about the way this particular stuff is lining up where it's like, hey, how would you like to give us $25 and you'll get some extra currency for this, and then you can spend it however you want, including maybe on this thing that complements the thing you just bought or some other thing you might like. I would like it if they could just walk in totally separate worlds.
That would be nice. Yeah, that would be nice. All right, Wrath Classic, the Joyous Journeys 50% experience buff has returned. Players can essentially get out there in the world and increase their experience gains by 50% all the way up through level 80. So if you're someone who's trying to level up quickly inside Wrath Classic, you can level up quickly right now. You can also visit innkeepers in capital cities to turn the experience buff on or off. If you're someone who wants the, more classic experience, you can just hop to an innkeeper, turn this off so you're not, compromising your experience if that's something you want to do. So either catch up or choose not to. I think that's a great feature for something that, is about the experience, right? I mean, Classic is about experiencing what the game was. 50% buffs weren't a thing, so don't expect it to be around. So good to see.
Yeah, it gives you the option to really have that sort of more original leveling experience. I mean, Wrath Classic is sort of its own beast. They've added a lot of differences to the experience over what we played back in 08, 09, and 2010. But still, I got in there initially and I got to like 72 and I just ran out of time to play. I really want to go back and finish leveling that character off. So I don't know when I'm going to do that. Like, in what universe do I have time to do this? But one really cool thing here is Joyous Journeys will be available during the Icecrown Citadel content update and until further notice. So this is not like, as for what we know right now, it's not like, oh yeah, make sure you get to level 80 before Icecrown comes out. That's not what they're doing. I mean, maybe they'll just leave this on. I think that would be awesome. Like, why not? It's, you've already, Wrath Classic is not a museum piece. It is not a preservation of the original experience. It's been out for a year now. Why not just leave this on instead of maybe having to like patch the data to, do XP requirement nerfs or whatever. I mean, they used to do that. Remember, like in those days, they would just like hard nerf like how much experience it took to reach a level, and that would come in over the course of an expansion. They just adjust it all or whatever, and the new expansion would come out and they'd go back and nerf it for lower levels or whatever. This is way simpler. Here, you just level up faster until the end of time of Wrath Classic. So it's cool. I still haven't logged into my Classic hardcore tune. I made it. I set her up and gave her name, and then didn't push the enter world button, and I haven't, and it's been weeks. So yeah, as much as I would love to take advantage of this and get my Wrath Classic warrior to 80, I don't know. In some parallel universe where I have time to do that, it's totally happening.
Nice. Okay, let's dive a little bit into the Fury Incarnate content update that has launched this past Tuesday. Dream Surges, the new public event, is in. While these are happening and taking place inside of zones, you get an experience buff for players who are still leveling, 25% increased experience, just for doing stuff in that zone, which is called the Dreaming Winds buff, if you guys happen to see that on your character. Basically, champions have to work together to defeat an onslaught of Druids of the Flame, destroying their altars and dragon riding through their reinforcements circling above. Once complete, you have to prepare to fight with the Flame Lieutenants, who drop charred elemental remains once they've been defeated. During a Dream Surge minor, Waking Dream portals are also found scattered across the zones. These can be defeated by solo players or in small groups. Every 30 minutes while the event is active, a new buff will be selected for that region. Those participating in the event can vote to shape the incoming Dream Surge, so players of various useful, powerful, or chaotic buffs to help them defend the zone. We've talked about Dream Surges before. You went and experienced one with no one around, which didn't really do much. Now, have you experienced one with lots of people around, Jason?
Well, all my alts are still on Bailgun, so it's like playing PTR. No, not quite. Not quite. So let's talk about Dream Surges a little bit, because this is basically like the new repeatable content that we have for this patch, and people are very unhappy with these, and I think they are approaching them from maybe the wrong direction. I'm not going to say that they're good, but they are useful. They're very utilitarian, because these are a great catch-up mechanic for gear, for transmog. You get a lot of gear tokens. They're 402, so you're just skipping right over LFR. They're catalyzable, so you can start collecting your set bonuses and set mogs. And the stuff that you can buy, like the 402 tokens you can buy, are bind on account, so you can play whatever character you would like and then funnel the pieces you want. There are weapons and jewelry. There's no trinkets, but you can get them from the time rifts if you go to those vendors. So you can get fully kitted out in 402 with 4-piece pretty easily, get all your mogs. To me, this is very appealing this late in the season. This is, what I want to do. And the XP buff I have not found to be like super noticeable, but it is there. The Dream Surge event mobs do not scale down. So I went out there with my 65 rogue and I was like, wow, that's a level 70. I'm dead. But you do get XP for killing them. So if you can hide behind some level 70s and just tag some stuff, you will get XP from killing them. There's a mount you can get from getting 30 of the charred elemental remains that the portal bosses drop. The portals are every half hour, so they're at the top and bottom of every hour, and they usually take about like 10 minutes ish to do, maybe a little bit longer if there's not a lot of people, maybe way less if there's a lot of people. So it's a little bit more grindable, shall we say, than like time rifts have been up to this point, with just being once at the top of the hour, and you can't really do anything other than that. The rares around Waking Shores is this week. Like, I guess we're just going in order. So we start with Waking Shores. The rares are sort of buffed for the Dream Surge event. So they have, like, it seems to rotate. I don't know if it's on a daily or more frequently than that, but all the rares will have a buff that makes something different happen when you fight them. They're sort of ethereal looking, like they're transparent green, like they're stuck in the Emerald Dream or something. Most of the buffs are kind of whatever. There's one that makes them spawn these phoenixes repeatedly, and the phoenixes just pulse AoE healing. And if I have a hard enough time getting people in an organized raid group in voice chat to switch to ads. If you have like a handful of people just randomly playing together outdoors, like, good luck with that particular buff, because if you get 3 or 4 birds out, suddenly nothing is taking damage or is killable. So if you're out there and you see the phoenixes flying around a rare with max health, maybe kill the birds. But the other ones are pretty innocuous. But that one I've kind of noticed is like, okay, we're just never going to kill this mob. But you can get tokens and stuff off of the rares. So that's awesome. I mean, it's not as rapid fire as Forbidden Reach was, right? Because in that zone, it was like, when that was new, there was like a rare up every 2 minutes. You'd be just going from rare to rare and making laps around the zone. I was hanging out in Waking Shores earlier today on my monk, and I did a Dream Surge, and we killed the lieutenant. And so the Dream Surge, the portal closed, and the Dream Surge is still going on. It's a whole week long, but then it just, like, you have the portal event every half hour. I think I just stood around waiting for Rare Scanner to ping me that there was a rare available, and I don't think I got one in half an hour. So, there's a weekly quest to get 100 of the currency, and that rewards a token that you can exchange for a 415 piece of loot of your choice, which is amazing. That it's only one a week per character, but it is per character, which is nice. And again, I mean, you can upgrade that stuff to whatever, I don't know. I don't even know how high that goes. 437 or something.
424.
424.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it goes higher than that even. But yeah, and it's catalyzable and all that. So I mean, that's like you can get that into the heroic loot range if you really invest upgrade items in it, which is really cool. There's another mount you can buy from currency. There's toys and pets and stuff as well, but that's maybe a couple sessions worth of grinding these. It's not a whole lot. I mean, you need 1,000 for the mount, but you can get 1,000 pretty fast if you invest the time in. The gear's only 100 currency each for the tokens, so that's pretty nice. You can get that pretty quickly. Each of the rares drops about 20. And you'll find some throughout the zone too. There's like these little green orbs floating around that you can drag and ride through. There's these plants you can collect. The Waking Dream portals are really cool, actually, because they'll just be around and you click it and then Druids of the Flame start coming out and then you kill them and they drop the Dream Surge Coalescence and you kill a couple waves of them and then a rare comes out and you kill him and he can drop rare stuff. There's just not a lot of them. And some of them seem like they're bugged, like you can't interact with them. And there's nothing on your map that pings you that's like, hey, this is here or whatever. Like maybe there's like a handy note thing or something that'll track like where they are. Maybe we'll get, or like a week or something. I'll have to keep an eye out for that, because like if you were just going around from rare to portal to rare or whatever in the spaces between the big surges, I think that would be a lot better, because you'd always be gaining currency and having a shot at tokens dropping. I think that's pretty much it with the event. I guess what I would say is, if you feel like you're done with season 2 and you don't care about these cosmetics, you don't need to do this at all.
Yeah.
There is no benefit for you. If getting 402 veteran track gear 1 of 8 that is catalyzable sounds interesting to you for like minimal effort that you could do solo and outdoors, then this is what Dream Surges are for. This is literally why they're in the game, is to get your character up into 415-ish range in advance of season 3. Yeah. So, take advantage of it or ignore it. I mean, I have some criticisms of it overall, and I've been doing a lot of this the last couple of days, and I've been enjoying it. I'm getting a lot of power on my alts that are very underpowered. They talked about this a lot, right? And this is like sort of the big new feature of this patch, because everything else is kind of just refinements or one-time only questing. I had in my head more of like a Legion Assault type of thing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
This is not like that.
Yeah.
There are not bespoke world quests for the Dream Surge. It's just whatever world quests were there, but now they count towards a weekly quest that you can get for the Dream Surge. So do your dragon riding racing and get the world quest component done. At least in Waking Shores, the timed event is in the same place every single time. And you are fighting the same collection of like 5 mobs or something. This, Druid of the Flame themed mobs. They made it kind of sound like that there should be more variety overall, right? Of like stuff we were fighting and just kind of more dynamic events. It's not like that at all. It's very straightforward. It's very kind of one note. It's just very routine. It's only been out for 2 days and I already feel like it's routine to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen everything it has to offer. You get like a different lieutenant. Maybe the lieutenant's like a big Phoenix thing. Maybe it's a Molten Giant. It is what it is. It's not. It probably wasn't the most like development intensive event for them to come up with, because it's not like they needed a ton of support for custom stuff, and there's very little randomness to what's happening. So that was probably a plus. And, I think the benefits are there. This is something I'm going to be doing a lot in the next couple of weeks here while I get my tunes set up. But if you were like, if you're a player who you don't have like a tune you want to work on and you do this and you go, I thought that sucked. Like, I get it. You're probably right. Like, it's just a big nothing for a geared endgame player who's just waiting patiently for season 3. There's nothing to pull you into it.
We needed a better catch up mechanic than what was currently existing in the game. This is a better catch up mechanic for that sort of dumps loot on you coming up on, a month and a half or 2 months away from us seeing season 3. So this is what we get. It doesn't surprise me too much. I think that this makes sense as to what it is. I do wish it was a little bit, as you said, more populated in the zone. I was very much picturing like these dream portals being everywhere. I was very much picturing Legion, assault style stuff where you have mobs upon mobs upon mobs pouring out of the portals, which then, tied in with the 25% increased experience meant that characters that we're fighting, and these mobs should be scaled. Scaled mobs could level up quickly in a lot of these circumstances. So I think it's unfortunate that it didn't quite meet that expectation, but it is still a way to gear up your character quickly, which is what we needed. So at least there's that. At least, the mechanics in there for it. All right. Heroic Dawn of the Infinite is something else that came out. So Dawn of the Infinite split into 2 heroic wings. This is in preparation for it being Mythic Plus in Season 3 when that kicks off. So if you're someone who wants to work your way through Heroic Dawn of the Infinite, you can do that now. The Night Elf and Forsaken Heritage Armor is also now out there with these different Heritage campaigns you can complete. Jason, have you started the Night Elf one yet?
I did the Night Elf one. I did it yesterday. I did not do the Forsaken one yet. Seen a lot of grousing about the Night Elf one, which I sort of understand. I thought it was cool. It's not very epic. It's a very personal story. It's a lot about Maiev Shadowsong and sort of the past and future of the Night Elf people. It is not some huge undertaking or like epic scale thing. It is a very personal story. And it ties into, our early experiences on Kalimdor in vanilla. It's similar to the human one in that way to some degree. But I would say it probably wasn't as good as like the human and orc ones that came out recently, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it told a good story, and I think Maiev, for me, has always been an interesting character. So seeing her get like a spotlight here in a way that's not really tied into any specific thing in the game was cool. When I initially saw the Night Elf Heritage Armor, I was like, that's what I would expect it would kind of look like, but I don't know if I'm going to use it. But there was a little thing that they didn't mention until I guess it hit live. When you finish the quest, yes, you get the armor. You also get a Mog that looks like one of those triple-bladed glaives that the Night Elf Sentinels have. Yeah. But it's a one-handed sword. It's not a war glaive, which only demon hunters can use now.
That's interesting.
A lot of classes can use one-handed swords. So I was like, okay, let me get on the yak and let me click some stuff.
Yep.
Okay, Heritage Armor. Okay. All right, put the glaive on. Okay, looking nice. And then I had a shield. The Warfront gear from BFA, the Darkshire Warfront. There was actually a color scheme that was kind of more like burgundy color, sort of like the Night Elf Heritage Armor is. And there's a shield that's like an owl motif. It's like a long kind of tower shield with. It looks like an owl kind of thing carved into it with like feathers hanging off it, and the color kind of matches, and the overall look is really nice. So, I figured whatever, let me run around with it a little bit, and you get a new title for completing the thing as well. So, overall, like, was it like the best one they've ever done? No, I don't think it was like, in that echelon of really great ones, but I was happy with it overall. I think it was fun to play through, and the rewards were really great. So, yeah, I don't really have any complaints. I'll check the Forsaken one out maybe this week or when I get a chance. I do have a level 50 Forsaken kicking around somewhere. So, I don't know if I've done there is a prereq for that I may not have done though. So I might have to put some work into that. I gotta check it out.
Yeah. I'm thrilled to hear it's one-handed sword. That's actually very surprising because in all the stuff that we'd read, it was a glaive. That's what we'd heard is this is going to be a glaive. The plan is for it to be a glaive. Like, okay.
It's literally called the blood-stained glaive or something. There's you get 3 different colors of it, and they're literally called glaives, but they are one-handed swords in your transmog menu,
which is wonderful. Because you're right. There's so many classes that can use them. They're such a cool, iconic-looking weapon. I'm very excited that more people get to actually roll around with them than just one particular class, which would have been really unfortunate. All right, Eastern Kingdoms Cup. It is kicking off on October 4th through October 17th. You get to participate, in Eastern Kingdom, flying around dragon riding on all these different races. There's, of course, 16 races across Eastern Kingdoms in normal, advanced, and reversed variations. And you get to earn the Riders of Azeroth badge in exchange for rewards at Mastha in Valdrakken. You head to the Holiday Enthusiast outside the bank in Valdrakken to pick up the initial quest, which is the breadcrumb. This also gets you some more of that barter currency. If that's something you want to do, that's how this works. So, when October 4th rolls around, it's certainly worth picking up and checking out the Eastern Kingdom Cup for people who've enjoyed the Kalimdor one so far.
Yeah, I don't know if there are new achievements. There's new achievements. Obviously, I don't know if there's new gear to buy. I would think that there would be, but you never know. I'm not sure that like it would be. I don't know. You had to do a lot of Kalimdor Cup in order to get all of the rewards from the vendors. So that that might have been the intention for the whole thing. But I assume there'd be a title. There was a title for getting all golds in Kalimdor as well. So. Yeah, we're a couple weeks out from this, month out from this, but I thought Kalimdor was awesome. I'm looking forward to this one as well.
Yeah, you might have noticed when you logged in, your character might have suddenly achieved something. That's because they added 120 profession achievements, including some that are retroactive. So yes, I did log in on my druid and suddenly get 3 achievements and went, okay, this happens all the time, but sure.
Yeah, they like added achievements from old expansions, like for hitting various profession milestones from like prior expansions. So yeah, there's a lot of new achievements and other kind of bits and pieces added into the data in this patch.
Yeah. So if you notice that, that's what that's from. On September 12th, so we're just 5 days away, you get to follow Velen's prophecy to reveal a new future for some of the Draenei people. So we not too sure exactly what this is going to look like, but presumably it'd be a quest chain with maybe an in-game cinematic that sort of tells us a tale. So I'm looking forward to seeing this come in next Tuesday and what this is all going to look like. Yeah,
and my assumption is that this will unlock the new customizations for the Draenei with the red skin, like the Eridar looking Draenei stuff with the green glow and all that. So that's a lot of the narrative themes in the game and recent expansions have been kind of reconciling and bringing these disparate groups of people together. So I guess Velen's ready to say, hey, like, I know you think demons are cool and all, but we could be friends, right? We'll find out next week.
Yeah. There were some class changes that came in with this. So if you're a druid or a monk, it's certainly worth checking that out, as well as some small tweaks for paladins and priests. So druids got big change. A new talent, Master Shapeshifter, where your abilities are amplified based on your current shapeshift form, granting an additional effect. Where Bear's Ironfur grants 30% additional armor and generates mana. Cat Form, Rip, Ferocious Bite, and Maim deal 60% additional damage and generate a lot of mana, 4 times as much mana. One cast with a 5-point combo. Moonkin Form, Wrath and Starfire and Star Surge deal 30% additional damage and generate mana. Man, oh man. So yeah, if you're someone who is looking at druid trees, there's some changes that you might be tweaking around with your specs. So be sure that you find out obviously what your role is inside your group and how to best support that and how these changes might affect that. We saw similar things happen with monks affecting Mana Tea and Energizing Brew, a new talent that came in for that. So some changes happened. Just pay attention to them in case it affects your class in particular. All right.
Yeah, a bit smaller scale than like, hey, Augmentation Evoker's getting patched into the game. This is like the lightest class balance,
what we've seen,
class design update that we've seen this whole expansion so far. So yeah, I mean, definitely some stuff to look up, but it's not on the scale of some of the previous smaller patches that we've gotten in this expansion.
Yeah. In dragon riding, challenge course, as you adventure across Dragon Isles, test your dragon riding skills with the new challenge course. How well can you fare without your resource generation? So we talked a bit about this before as well. But yeah, basically there's a new mode that you can earn more achievements. These achievements are things that are obviously going to be more difficult to earn simply because you're not going to have resource generation. I assume the only way you'll get resource from this, because I haven't tried one yet, is from going through those orbs that are on the course. And that's the only thing that's going to keep you moving is going through the rings or picking up the orbs. So you got to really, figure out the trick. This is like a solve race, if you will, as opposed to a hey, manage things and generate things and manage things. This is like, no, there's going to be a certain way to do this. And that'll be here's the solve for doing the race.
Yeah, I haven't tried these at all yet, so I don't know. I read it like you wouldn't have anything at all to, regen. So I don't know. I haven't done so far. I probably won't do this because there's just so many like Dragon Isles races. And now there's 5 different versions of each one at this point. So yeah, there's a lot of dragon riding out there, especially as of this patch. Yeah,
I definitely haven't done. I was working my way through the reverse ones was the last thing I was doing before I was like, I'm good on dragon riding races for a little bit. Just working my way through the reverse one. So the fact that they've now added, another version of ways to do it, I guess there's people out there who love this, and it's cool. I'm glad they're supporting those people. I'm not one of those people. I think dragon riding is a lot of fun. I find the races, doing them 4 or 5 times, to be a little monotonous to do them that many times. That's just me. Even if you're changing it up a bit, my brain's not in that puzzle solving position at the moment. Okay, quest-wise, we got new chapters, for campaign chapters for Chandra's Feathermoon. We also have a single wing, which is the Emberthal sends out scouts. And then No Limits, where Chromie barters for a truce between the Bronze Dragonflight and one of its sworn enemies. And we also have the Reforging Tier Part 3 kicking off. So obviously no spoilers in what's happening with these particular things, but lots of campaign stuff for you to explore and check out and decide what you want to do as far as how your character or your experience in the game is going to progress based off of these storylines.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of one-time questing in this patch. You just ran down all the the main chapters, but it was a good couple hours of one-time questing. I did think the Chandra's quest ties right into what we're going to be talking about next with 10.2 coming up. So definitely check that out. There's not a lot to that, but it's sort of the bridge between 10.1 and 10.2. Yeah. And the stuff with Chromie and Nazdormu and that whole thing into the next chapter of the tier quest was really cool as well. So good stuff. There's a lot of storytelling in here, and there's a lot of different kinds of stories being told. We have a lot of different threads, in this expansion, and it's cool because I think about BFA, man. How many times did we talk on the show about, hey, new war campaign stuff came out finally? I forgot what happened last time, right?
Yep.
That was kind of the big knock on the war campaign, was that the updates were spaced out so far that none of the stories felt like they had any momentum. And there's almost too much story questing in this expansion, because you get a couple little nibbles with every single patch, and we're getting patches every 2 to 3 months. So sometimes I'll log in on an alt and it's like, oh yeah, there's that Mela High Mountain quest waiting for me. Yep. What was that even? I don't even remember. You know what I mean? So then maybe it's kind of the opposite problem, and there's really no correct answer for what the right timing is. But I think having this custom built stuff come out this consistently, it does make the game feel a bit more alive. It makes it feel like stuff is happening. And I think the questing in this patch is really fun. It's definitely worth your time doing. And again, if you're not grinding dream surges to gear up alts, then there's not a lot of other new stuff really on offer.
Yeah, it's a curious thing because it depends on how you play the game, right? I know right now, John Jagger is out there somewhere going, dude, this is all the questing I want. Give me all this questing. This is the questing I need. I need the questing. I need the story. And it's great. That's how, John played the game. That's how he was really interested in the game. For, Raiders, it's okay, I'm going to see that little exclamation point about the High Mountain quest for the rest of this expansion, because I just have zero interest in having to go and do that quest. It doesn't interest me at all, right? So, and then you have everywhere in between that spectrum. And it's a lot. I will say that this expansion, and I've talked about this before with just the world events alone, is a very busy expansion. There is a lot going on in this expansion on a regular basis, not just from these sort of questing and little breadcrumb things that they throw in, or the secrets event that's taking place, or all these things. There's just world events alone. We've talked about the clutter on the map, of opening up the map and being holy man, there's a lot here. This is overwhelming. So I do feel as they add more layers, and this is going to make me sound really old, it's having an acetate with a drawing on it and then laying another one over it and laying another one over it. I guess for the newfangled people, it's in Photoshop and putting a layer over top of a layer over top of a layer, where each layer on its own spread out makes sense and looks really good. And then as you sort of put the one over the other as the expansion goes on, you start going, there's a lot here that you guys are doing, and it doesn't necessarily guide players in a great way as to how to find it all. So we are still yet to see this expansion in its final form, but I'm a little worried it's going to be just this bizarro clown fiesta of map trying to pay attention to what's happening and where you're supposed to go and how it's supposed to work. They really need a streamlined, I've just hit max level, or I've just arrived inside Valdrakken for the first time. What do I do? Kind of quest chain is what they kind of need at this point, because you'll pick up 6 quest chains and they will be for all different periods of time throughout the expansion and have incredibly wide-ranging eye-level rewards. So I do feel like at some point they need to like find a way to streamline that a little bit to get people on track as to what they're doing. Because it's not a bad problem to have too much content, but how you display and present that content to players is important. Which I think will be a great thing to see them hopefully come about later on in this expansion.
Yeah, for sure, because you have all the stuff on different timers too, and overlaps mean that you can't do everything. But there's stuff that is irrelevant essentially from season 1, other than for like maybe Mog or some other kind of unique cosmetic reward. But if a player is not really following exactly all of these steps as they are released, then how do they know that this isn't important anymore, or that they shouldn't still be doing this beyond a certain point, maybe? I think, they've sort of just said, you know what, we're going to throw everything at the wall. We're just going to have all of these different rotating public events and all these different delivery methods all the time, this whole expansion, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they've never really done it on that scale before. There's usually kind of like one thing that's like super important that happens every hour or every 2.5 hours or something. And that's like the thing that you're doing. And now like every zone has that, and every, I don't know, tier has that or something, every little update has some thing that you can go do every half hour or every hour or whatever. And that has a unique currency, and, it has these rewards from it. And it is a lot to unpack. And the weird thing is that pretty much only the newest thing is like ever relevant. I mean, at the moment, dream surges and time rifts are the first time where it's like, okay, there could still be reasons to do time rifts, because you can still get like a guaranteed 402 for the week, or you get more than one if you get really lucky. You can get trinkets that you can't get trinkets from the dream surge vendors. So time rifts still have like a little bit of utility going forward for gearing up, and also there's just a ton of like pretty like fun cosmetics. The cosmetics have a lot of personality from time rifts for sure. So I don't know. But it's that we've never seen them kind of design the outdoor world like this before, and I feel like they have put in a ton of stuff that just doesn't have a long enough shelf life to bother with. There's just all this stuff that gets added all the time, and it's like, okay, well, I did this once, I'm never going to do this again, and it's going to just be rotating through in the zone every hour for the next eternity. I'll be interested to see in an expansion from now how they kind of take that approach to public events. Are they still just putting stuff in every single update, or is it more like a thing that maybe adapts with as the expansion moves along or something like that?
Yeah, I'll have to wait and see. Another thing that's sort of adapted as the expansion moved along is probably the largest UI component update that we've seen in a while, which is the ping system has come in now, where the ping system allows you to quickly communicate with your team without having to use voice or text chat. Holding the G button opens up a pinwheel where you can quickly call commands such as attack, assist, warning, or on my way. And they are also contextual based off of whether your cursor is over an enemy, the ground, or unit frames. You can bind these into macros where you can just do a ping at a location, or to attack or assist or on my way, or as a warning. You can even do like a slash ping at target, which will actually let you ping at your current target that something's going on. These are huge levels of communication that don't require you to use voice to do it. And I can see, actually, to be honest, if the ping system is active inside of a PvP environment, which so far from my understanding it is, this is a pretty big, helpful tool for a lot of groups that are out there that aren't necessarily all using voice at the same time. Don't worry, there is a way to ignore players, which will silence their pings. So if you have someone who is spamming pings over and over again and it's super irritating, you can ignore them by just doing a /ignore and then typing their name. This will stop those pings from happening. There's 2 modes to activating the ping wheel. You can either press and release the hotkey to trigger a ping at the mouse position, or you can press and hold the hotkey to trigger a radial wheel at the position the hotkey was initially pressed. So there's a bunch of different ways you can deal with it. You can restrict it to being just leaders or assistants to the group as far as raids go. There's a tutorial for the actual ping system inside the options ping systems page. So if you're someone who's looking for that, you can access it there. I think this is one of the better systems they've just put out there. Like, I think it was well thought out. I think it was well put together. I like the macro involvement macro support right from the beginning. I'm excited for this. This is going to be great inside of a new raid tier.
Yeah, it's a cool addition. It looks a little strange in the UI though, because it does not look like anything else in this game's UI.
It's new. It's new.
Yeah, right? It is. It is very modern compared to even like the updated, edit mode UI that came in with Dragonflight. Like it looks like an overlay over top of the game and not as much a part of the game. I don't know. It's a little difficult for me to put into words what it is about it, but like it has a sheen on it that other stuff in WoW's UI just doesn't really have. But it's cool functionality. I mean, it's stuff that we've seen in MOBAs and games like that before, FPS games, whatever. I think it's going to be really good for pugs that aren't in voice.
Yeah.
Because it's way, if I'm in voice chat with my raid team or my dungeon team, I might just put a skull marker on a mob's head and say, hey, kill skull. That's probably easier, and we're all used to that kind of gameplay in that type of environment, versus like I'm just going to ping the thing that we're going to kill next, and it puts like the sword over its head for a little bit and all. I think like for coordinated groups, the tools that we have are probably still better than this, but for pugs and for PvP, I think this could be really great. The other thing that I thought of with this, and I haven't used it in this way up to this point, but sometimes there's fights where as a raid leader, you can't really set up the room before the pull because there's some kind of random element, or there's maybe the arena shifts, you fall through the floor, or so you end up in a place that you can't see before you start. And then there's a thing that you need to direct traffic around. Having the ping system could be better because it's way more streamlined to just like bring up the ping wheel and drop your ping versus trying to drop a world marker and fumbling with that whole thing. So I think there could definitely be some raid utility for stuff like that, where you're just calling stuff on the fly in an emergency or something, or when you have a room that you can't set up prior to the poll. So super nice addition for sure. And I think it's really going to benefit, more loosely organized groups for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about what the potential is for this. And even from a, casting perspective for AWC, I think you could also see this being used as casters, as long as the pings aren't visible to players, to point out things that are happening easier on the fly as things are going, which I'd be excited to see in this sort of, in that sort of esport, because it is hard to keep track of what's happening. And if you can literally do like a big ping in an area as an observer that doesn't affect the players themselves, only the observer can see it, that would be a nice feature to have as well for those sorts of things, to highlight what might be happening somewhere, as opposed to, either keeping that pulled back camera so no one misses any of the action, or pulling in really close and it being a little bit distorted as to what's actually happening and hard to understand what's happening. So yeah, another feature came in is real-time chat moderation, where whispers that may contain harassing chat sent from players that are not on your friends list will now be hidden. So if your friends want to harass you, they can still harass you all they want. But people who are not on your friends list, you will get basically a message with a warning saying, hey, this has been censored. You can't see what this is. You can then choose to reveal it. And if you reveal it, there's going to be a report option directly in the message. So essentially, if the person is being a jerk, you can report them very easily. This feature can be found in options social censor messages. So if you're someone who wants to turn this off, you can. But I think this is great. I love this. This is really easy way, as long as it works, this is a really easy way to do censorship. I do remember like when we put in, when they put in Mythic Plus, a change to Mythic Plus system, you couldn't report easily. You had to like go through like a 3-step process to report groups. And when they received feedback from players, including myself, saying, hey, this is too hard to do reporting, they resolved that and made it easier to do reports. This is another way and this time chat focused to do those reports, making that easier for players to do. So I'm super happy about it. You can ignore the censored messages and just never look at them, or you can look at them if you're mentally prepared to see what sort of vitriol might have been thrown at you, and you can choose to report them very easily through that menu. So that's good to see. I'm very happy to see that coming into the game.
Yeah, a little overdue. I mean, it's an old game. It's going to be 19 in another couple months, and this is something that probably should have came in a while ago, but better late than never. And that's been, I think for me, that's sort of been my reaction to a lot of these changes with the moderation tools and stuff in the game. There's never a bad time to add stuff like this, even if it's late. So I'm glad they did it. I mean, I don't usually talk to a lot of people I don't know inside of WoW, but that's just my experience. I live in my little garden most of the time.
Yeah.
And if you're out and about, you're pugging with people and stuff, then yeah, you know what, your odds are you're going to get flamed once in a while. So, that's a good feature, just cut it off before it even gets to the player.
Yeah. Or give them the option easily to report it if it does. So it's not something they have to go through a 3-step process, 4-step process to do. It's just, yeah, you censored this for a reason. You already know it's something that could be, offensive. Just let me click a button to report it. Perfect. Okay, they added a sell junk button to vendors, and in case you don't want to sell your Murlocs painting that they made for you, you can set a bag to ignore the sell all junk button that exists there by simply right-clicking on the bag icon and then, selecting that you don't want that bag to automatically sell junk. But otherwise, yeah, you basically get to show up, click the sell junk button, all the junk in your bag goes away, and you don't have to worry about it anymore, which is pretty exciting for a lot of players, because I know people use bag mods to take care of this for a while. So it's nice that it's now just being incorporated right into the game. These sorts of changes are always welcome, so that's good. You can now also, they basically made a scroll bar that's more noticeable in the Dragon Isle summary window, so you can scroll that easier. They add animations for the mail icon. The Battle.net quest icon's been updated. The increased party lead icon size in dungeons and raid queue prompts, so it's a bigger icon for the raid lead. The ready check prompt frame has new art, and the mini-map tracking for Tuskar tackle boxes can be toggled on and off with Find Fish, which I know Jason talked about last week, as an exciting feature that, yeah, doesn't make you feel like you're disappointed all of the time trying to get these.
The curse of unlocking the Tuskar tackle boxes. Yep. You've now cursed your UI. Well, now you haven't, because you can just, if you're trying to fish, then you can turn on Find Fish, and if you're not trying to fish, then you can turn it off, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. They also added an option to restrict calendar invites to friends and guild members, which I think is also a great feature, so you don't get potentially advertisers trying to send you calendar invites in-game for advertisements. That's not something that was intended for this, so yeah.
Yeah, this has become a vector for spam advertisements inside WoW, which is great. They will just never stop. They will always, any way that Blizzard puts in for players to communicate with each other and organize their play, somebody will come in and try to make money off of it. Yep. Rules. So yeah, I think this also defaults to being restricted with the patch. I know mine did. I'm not sure if it's global or what, but probably worth taking advantage of. I don't know if you would really want to have a calendar event with people that aren't your friend or in your guild, but I guess if you do, then make sure you toggle that off. But yeah, the amount I was getting, I don't know, maybe a calendar spam invite once a week lately. Yeah. So that's, yeah, I'm glad that that's off the table with this method. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole patch notes. I mean, overall, it's not the biggest update that we've seen. And I think if you are somebody who's like, I'm kind of done with season 2, I don't really think there's much here that you need to pay attention to be honest, which might just be a relief. But if you are like an outdoor only player, I think there's a lot of easy power on the table from Dream Surges that you would never have had access to before. We've jumped a whole difficulty tier basically coming from Time Rifts, and Dream Surges are more kind of grindable, farmable, whatever you want to think about it. And there's some new stuff to collect. The new questing I think is worth doing regardless of how you tend to play. But I mean, that's about it. This is a much the ripples from this update are going to be way mild compared to 10.1.5 and Augmentation Evoker and Dawn of the Infinite and all that.
Yeah, I would say that overall, there's still some content here for players who want to dive in, particularly as far as stories and quests go. But when it comes down to, I guess, whether or not you feel this is the biggest update, it's not. I like the UI updates. I think UI updates are always welcome and such a nice feature to have kick in. So those two things I really wanted to highlight in a big way. The outdoor world stuff is important just because the catch-up mechanic, whether or not you find it the most stimulating content or not, is, sort of aside the point to a certain degree. We will talk a little bit more about Guardians and what it's doing outdoor world, because that's also going to be a factor that I have a lot of opinions about. Mistweavers and Restoration Druids, hey, you're going to be changing up what you do. Maybe you do want to play or log in at least a couple of times before the next chunk of content kicks off, because this is going to change up what you do. So just a heads up on that one. But outside of that, it feels very much like this is the prep for, the next patch, the actual major Season 3 kicking off. And I think that is what this is supposed to be. So yeah, makes sense. All right, Guardians of the Dream. When the Guardians of the Dream arrives, champions will be tasked to protect a new zone, the Emerald Dream. It's not really a new zone. It's one that's been around for a very long time, but it's one you get to visit and engage in new public events. Super Bloom and Emerald Bounty build renown with the Dream Wardens, are going to be the faction that you're going to be building renown with, and save the new world tree from Farak's forces in the new raid, Amirdrasil, the Dream's Hope. Okay, so first and foremost, Emerald Dream, we get to go back there, and I say back there because we've been there like 4 or 5 times inside questing of different sorts. I remember doing stuff up in Moonglade that you had to do Emerald Dream things. I remember visiting and talking with people there. I remember there's been dungeons that have taken us there. There was a raid that took us to a corrupted version. There's a bunch of things that have sort of taken us over there to different areas. But here we are going to be visiting this area, and I believe it's like Ysera's Eye is the area that we're going to inside the Emerald Dream, which is where this big tree is growing. And we will be able to stop Farak's forces from corrupting said tree, which, of course, everyone always wants to corrupt the tree. I don't get it. Just leave the tree alone. I mean, really, come on now.
Yeah. We've seen like hints of the Emerald Dream in WoW since vanilla, right?
Yeah.
But this is the first time where there's like a sustained place that we're going to, like a big chunk of the dream that is like a permanent fixture of the game. So, the Emerald Dream is kind of a weird concept because it's this separate plane of existence that's sort of this blueprint of the primal version of Azeroth, right? Like it is the wild world without the influence of sort of civilization, right? Of the mortal kind of realm. It's in a way, it's sort of like the way Ny'alotha was presented in the game, where it's like this sort of parallel dimension that's like a reflection of reality. But looking at the video and the screenshots they've showed today, it looks great. I mean, this is exactly in my kind of wheelhouse for WoW aesthetic. This kind of like overgrown, like ancient forests and everything. It's like a 2023 version of Kalimdor, or even like Val'sharah, in Legion. That kind of, very night elven vibe. The huge, dense forests, just these ancient kind of structures that are built there and are all overgrown and everything. And of course, Farak's there and his Jarden are there, and so they're setting some stuff on fire and breaking stuff. But yeah, like the main sort of narrative conceit here is that, if you played through earlier chapters of the questing in Dragonflight, I feel comfortable spoiling this at this point because it's been out for almost like a year. Tyrande gets a seed for a new world tree and plants it inside the Emerald Dream. And so it's been growing there and it's getting ready to, burst forth into Azeroth itself. And if you've been playing the more recent campaign, you know that, Farak is the Primal Incarnates they're not really all on the same page. And Iridikron kind of went off on his own after the events of Dawn of the Infinite. And Virnoth and Farak sort of have very different opinions on what they should be doing next. And Farak really wants to like take over the world tree that's growing in the dream, and he has sort of his whole own agenda that is unfurling, I guess, in this upcoming patch and in the raid tier. So The zone looks great. I can't wait to go check it out. Hoping PTR will be up sooner than later, so I can maybe at least just go float around a little bit. But
I was partially expecting it to go live while we're doing our actual show. I was kind of expecting
right.
that the pre-download or something would be rolling right now.
Yeah, I mean, like this is exactly the kind of aesthetic of Warcraft that really drew me into the franchise. I think was the Night Elf angle of it, and that whole part of like Warcraft 3. And actually, in the video that they released today, they even kind of mentioned like a lot of the aesthetic is very inspired by Night Elf stuff from War 3, and that's always going to hit me square, right? Like that was the thing that I think set Warcraft apart for me from other settings. The thing that I really responded to in terms of aesthetic and visuals, just overall vibe. So. I think it's really cool. I mean, I'm not super surprised, right? Because they planted this sort of narrative idea back in the original Dragonflight release about the Emerald Dream and the new world tree and everything. So you kind of figured like, okay, well, this is going to come back into the story at some point. And then they really sort of started hitting that with the Farrak storyline coming out of, as 10.1 sort of advanced. So I think it's really cool. I think the idea of, the raid is set like in the nascent world tree itself.
I would say it's set in the pot that the tree sits in is what it is.
Yeah, kind of, right?
Basically.
Yeah, it's like we're sort of we're like actively defending the tree from Farrak's forces and stuff. And not really what I mean, I figured that you knew that we were going to have a reckoning with Farrak, right? Like it was obvious that, well, he's not just like an outdoor world event character. That's not not what he's for. So we're gonna fight him at some point. I didn't really, fighting him like surrounded by the world tree that Tyrande is trying to grow wasn't really what I thought we would be doing. But it's pretty cool. It almost like it's sort of from what the video they showed. It sort of reminds me of Old War in a way because you have these really kind of distinct wings that have the different, personalities and there's different reasons why you're in them. 9 boss raid sounds great to me. I kind of think that's like the sweet spot. I think doing a raid any bigger than that, you're kind of asking for trouble in terms of people hanging in there and getting really, having a fun time just approaching the raid and, clearing it on a regular basis. I think 9 bosses is pretty good. Plus they let you do some kind of tidy wings, right? Like a 3 boss wing over here and a 3 boss wing over there. And then maybe 2 more bosses and a final boss or a 3 boss wing up to the final boss. So, that sounds really good to me. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it sounds great. The only thing that stands out to me is I always find it strange when we go to these raids where there's natural defenses in place, and we have to fight our way through the natural defenses to get at the bad guys that are doing bad things. I always dislike that because I'm like, you're the good guy. We're both trying to do the same thing, but you're preventing us from getting to the bad things for whatever reason that doesn't make sense to me. I guess we have to kill you because they introduced a raid boss that is literally a guardian of the tree that we have to kill, who's not corrupted or anything, as part of a wing. And you're like, that's so sad. Like, why do we have to do this?
Well, I mean, a lot of times they're like automatons or something, right? Like they don't have free will; they're just performing a function. Sometimes they're kind of fanatical or whatever, where it's like they have no choice, but they can't not do what they're doing. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think I think for variety's sake, I think it's probably a good choice. It does get. We have had raids that are kind of one note, where it's like, well, we're fighting the fire creatures. I mean, there was definitely like Firelands vibes in the video that they showed here. Which is the raid. I mean, like obviously, if you watch the video or you look at the concept art, like obviously the Firelands, the elemental plane of fire is involved here.
Yeah.
But I mean specifically the raid called Firelands. I think those vibes come through in the video, and like that was a really cool raid, but it's very one note. Yeah. You're in the elemental plane of fire. You're doing nothing but fighting these fire mobs. So I think breaking up the aesthetic a little bit is probably smart and helps them tell a little bit more of the story as you go through.
I totally get. It's just sad sometimes, Like anyways, we'll move on. It was one of those like.
No,
I get it. You need the spice. I just wish you didn't have to kill all the defenders first to get to the bad guys. All right.
So let's stick on the raid for 1 second.
Sure. Okay.
Because in the video they mentioned. There's going to be an encounter where you have to dragon ride during the encounter.
Okay, good. Yeah, sure. We can cover that.
And I audibly groaned watching the YouTube video by myself.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, like, I also groaned at the notion of Noku defensive involving dragon riding around the dungeon. I was like, well, that sounds terrible, but it was okay. I trust them to use it responsibly, but I really don't want Malagos in any way, shape, or form. And also considering the fact that when we were doing Vault of the Incarnates, I would always have people DCing just from taking the taxi up to Razageth every single week. Like, I have some concerns about that. But, it could be a cool concept. It looks like we're going to be moving through a huge space and moving from platform to platform on our dragon riding mounts, like during the raid encounter. Cool idea. And I mean, part of designing new raids is like coming up with fresh concepts for players to interact with. But see also my comments about Flame Leviathan. Like, I don't like stuff that separates me from my character in raid fights. And I have concerns that on a scale of 20 plus players doing this, that's going to be any fun. But that was mentioned as part of the video.
So okay, the dragon riding thing, agree, audible groan. Caveat being them emphasizing in the video, we need people to test this, because they have no idea what it's going to be like when 25 people all hop on their dragon riding mounts and do a dragon riding race together at the exact same time inside of the same instance while there's boss mechanics happening. And I say while boss mechanics are happening because all the video they showed us of this is avoiding fireballs and picking up green spheres for whatever that is and going through loops, and like it looks like a dragon riding course, and it feels like there's going to be mechanics happening, like potentially the dragon you're chasing firing fire back at you or firing something back at you, or the person you're chasing, he's on a dragon, but still, the flame druid that you're chasing. I feel like you're probably going to have some dodging stuff happening during this race. I am super hesitant. I don't think you can do a Dragonflight expansion where they introduced dragon riding and not have a dragon riding boss. I just don't think you can. I think you have to do it. I get it.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yep. I am still very hesitant as to how this is going to go. What I liked about it, here's something I liked about it, is they directly referenced the last time we found a Druid of the Flame, which was inside of the Firelands raid, and that Druid of the Flame boss, which is something they didn't reference, was one where I played a mage that had to soar around through the air collecting feathers and go through loops and et cetera during that fight. Mm-hmm. Go figure, the next time we find a Druid of the Flame, you have to get onto a dragon riding mount and soar through loops and go through things while you're on top of a dragon riding mount. Like, I thought that was kind of a weird but neat tie-in that they chose to do as far as choosing this boss in particular to do this with. But I'm with you. I'm super hesitant about dragon riding inside a raid and having one or two people just not be good at it and not want to do it and feel really bad for holding the group back. And, that's unfortunate. Like, in the Mythic raiding scene, it's not going to be a problem because people are going to have some sort of way of practicing it and doing it that they're going to be fine. It's not going to be an issue. But everyone else is going to have people on their team that struggle with this kind of stuff, and it's going to be a problem. And so I'm curious as to how forgiving it ends up being, or what they need to do to make it forgiving enough for people to actually enjoy this. We've had the Sylvanas situation already where, hey, here's phase 1, it's okay, here's the intermission that's totally unnecessary, here's the final phase that's actually the good phase of the fight. Is this going to be a situation where the dragon riding is the intermission, right? Like, is that going to be a case where you're like, this is unnecessary and it takes a minute and a half or 2 minutes to do, and we have to do it 2 or 3 times in this fight, and I hate it. Like, that's not something you want to have happen with this fight. So I do hope that they are really watching that and tempering whether or not, hey, you know what? Let's just have people click on their dragon riding mount and it auto guides them through this thing really quickly and it's over in 10 seconds. Like, that needs to be something that is on the table when it comes to these sorts of fights. So we'll see what they choose to do,
I'm going to be optimistic and hope that it's fun. I mean, they've proved me wrong a lot in the last 2 years. I would say, like, back half of Shadowlands and into Dragonflight, that a lot of stuff I went, that doesn't seem like it's going to be cool. It ended up being cool. So maybe it'll be all right. All I want to do when I'm fighting a raid boss is control my character. That's it. Right. So we'll see. One other thought on the raid before we move on to some of the other stuff that got discussed as part of today's presentation. They're being a bit cagey as to whether or not Season 3 and 10.2 is sort of like the end, like the last big numbered patch of Dragonflight. And I have to say that they can be cagey all they want. There's no way that Farak is the end boss of Dragonflight. It's just not. So either that's some kind of swerve and there's some other thing at the end of the raid, or there will be a season 4 and a tier beyond that. Like, there's no way we're leaving Iridikron in the wind as far as I'm concerned. And if Iridikron's the final boss of Dragonflight, then okay, I think that makes sense. It's sort of a natural sort of arc there, introducing these characters, and then we deal with them each. And, Iridikron is sort of the de facto leader of the Primal Incarnate, so it would only make sense. But maybe it's some other bigger bad or some more familiar character or some other new character or something. I don't see this narratively being the end. And also, you got to think this patch is probably going to come out so if it's hitting PTR this week, you got to figure it's going to hit early November, right? Give it at least 2 months of PTR. So, new expansion for 2024. Can you really expect it earlier than Q4? Probably not. Can this patch sustain us through to the new expansion? An entire year, basically, you're asking out of this patch? I don't think so. So I think, if you read the tea leaves, it says to me that this is setting us up for the big final confrontation, and that this will not be the last season and the last raid tier of Dragonflight. So we don't know that for sure. And I did see briefly before we went on the air, I saw an interview clip in some press somewhere where, one of the, I don't know if it was Morgan or if it was Skarzard, was saying that, we're not ready to talk about what's next for Dragonflight. To me, that says that this is not the end. So we'll see. I could be wrong, and we don't know what we don't know at the moment. But this doesn't seem like the epic conclusion to Dragonflight that they usually like to do with expansions, is have that that big gnarly final boss that you've been building up to the whole time.
It does not. Yeah, I was gonna say, it does not set up for this huge, big face off towards the end of an expansion like we normally have, with massive things on the line. I'm curious about what comes next as well. Okay, public events. I did mention we talked about this. The Super Bloom, Emerald Frenzy, and Emerald Bounty is the overall event. It's a 3-parter. The first part is escorting an ancient, one of those big old tree dudes, as he lumbers through the bloom and fighting off enemies who are trying to stop him from doing these various tasks that he's trying to do. Once he arrives at his location, the Emerald Frenzy begins, in which case you then fight just mass amounts of crazed creatures that are sort of upset in the area. So you fight those off. Every time you kill those, you get these seeds as a currency, as well as some other rewards. And then the Emerald Bounty happens, which means you walk up to a pile of dirt, you plant the seeds in it. Depending on how many players plant seeds in it and how many seeds are planted in it, the bounty from that plant growing increases, and you get a bunch of rewards from it. Okay, so cool 3-parter, kind of like the storyline that happens here. My brain instantly goes to repeatable content when it comes to what is this going to feel like. Is this a 1 hour long event? Is this a 30-minute long event? Is this a 20-minute long event? Because if it's, the 45-minute to an hour range, that sounds terrible to me. I'm just putting it out there. If it is a 15 to 20 minute escort followed by 10 to 15 minutes of killing creatures and then 5 minutes of Emerald Bounty watching a plant grow and hoping enough people come around for you to get the rewards that you want, because the rewards are based on how many people participate, which as the patch goes on, fewer people will participate, which makes those rewards much harder to get. That's something I don't like. So I hope that this very much is a 5 to 10 minute escort followed by 5 minutes of killing Emerald Frenzy mobs that are around. And then, hey, here's the 5-minute bloom phase and it's all done in 20 to 25 minutes. That to me is a decent event to participate in for a bunch of rewards. I'd be happy to do that. So I don't know what this is going to look like time-wise. Overall, I think it's kind of cool. I like the theming towards the Emerald Dream. I like the theming towards, growing this bounty with people around you. All of the little red lights are blinking in my brain around, hey, if this takes too long and no one participates, this is going to suck. So I hope they keep that in mind, and they have plans either to tune it later on or it comes out in a much better form than what we were teased today. Because I need the Outdoor World stuff to, as Jason mentioned about the current stuff, to be engaging and fun and something you want to do. And if it becomes a chore very quickly, it's going to suck for people to participate in it. So it cannot be a chore. It needs to be a fun activity, or at least a quick activity. So it's not something that people are dreading doing. So I hope that's what we're leaning towards. That's what I'm going for it, with the hope that that's what we're leaning towards.
Yeah, here's your event that's going to be on a separate timer that makes dream surges and time rifts irrelevant.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, what this sounds like to me, basically, maybe slightly different activities that they kind of outlined in the video, is Researchers Under Fire, right? Researchers Under Fire is this kind of multi-step thing that's on a timer, and it can last kind of a long time if you are getting through all the objectives. And then the more objectives you do, the better stuff you get, or the more chances you have to get stuff, or, you know, however you want to think about it. It seems kind of in that mode. You know, they actually WoW podcasting Hall of Famer Ann Stickney was in the video. And, you know, if you ever listen to Blizzard Watch or Lore Watch, she used to be on those shows. And she's been working at Blizzard for a few years now on the narrative team. And so she was kind of describing, you know, the initial part as sort of like pushing the payload in Overwatch or something. So, you know, I feel like the sweet spot for these things is like 15 minutes. That's about as much as you should really expect. And beyond that, it gets a little absurd.
Yeah.
So we'll, you know, I guess we'll see how this really stacks up. I mean, my expectation was that a new public event would be coming in with the new zone, because that's just what they're doing. So the question will be, I guess, is this the kind of thing that you really feel motivated to do every time it comes up? Is this a thing you do maybe once a week or maybe once a day if you're, you know, maybe trying to get renown thresholds or whatever? Or is it a thing where, you know what, I play in-game mostly. I play Dungeon Raids PvP. I did the public event once because I had a quest to do it and I wanted to see what it was about, and I never came back. Like, where does it kind of land? And I guess a lot of that depends on what kind of rewards are we talking about. I would imagine probably mostly cosmetics, right? You're not probably going to get a lot of relevant power from this, but I think also the renown will be a question, right? We have a new renown faction, and you'll probably want to get as much renown as you can as early as you can. So if this gives renown rep to the tune of like the way Community Feast does, this might be something that you want to spend some time on, right? If that's the thing that you care about. But if not, then it might be a weekly or less frequent, you know, type of activity. I kind of dip in, and I'll do Researchers Under Fire once in a while at this point, if I happen to stroll by while it's happening, because it's an easy way to get your aiding the Accord and your loam niffin weeklies done. But I don't sit around going, hey, let me get over there because it's time for Researchers Under Fire, right? Like I'll do it if it's time, but it's not really on my radar beyond that. And I think that's where public events should live. It shouldn't really be a thing that end-game players are, you know, feeling motivated to participate in all day long. I think that would also be bad. So there's like a balance there, but the theming seems cool. I mean, it's cool theming for the Emerald Dream, right? Like hanging out with an ancient. I was talking about Warcraft 3 earlier. That's part of the stuff that really drew me into the setting so much to begin with, because I just thought the way that they expressed it in Warcraft was so cool in Warcraft 3, and then moving into, you know, vanilla WoW and Darnassus and all that. So, I love the theming of this patch entirely. Like this patch was like made for me. This is your, you know, your Night Elf patch right here. So I'm thrilled with all that. And, you know, but we're adding another layer of acetate onto our public events, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And that's, as I was saying earlier, something that they have to make sure is really clean and clear and guides players towards the newest thing that's going to have the better rewards, as opposed to them going out and doing the oldest thing first because they don't know any better, and then going to the newer thing and then being like, oh, well, I just wasted a huge amount of time trying to do public events that no one else was doing that were really hard for me to do when there's these other ones over here. I think they really need to push players in a certain direction very quickly when they sort of log into the game after a bit of a break or come up to a max level for the first time. So we'll see what they do. But Season 3 is going to have a new Mythic Plus rotation. We're going to see the 2 Dawn of the Infinite Wings inside of this, obviously split off. We have Waycrest Manor coming back, which I have opinions about. We have Ataldazar from Battle for Azeroth, Darkheart Thicket from Legion, which is obviously very dream-themed, along with Blackrook Hold from Legion, Everbloom from Warlords of Draenor, which I haven't done since the challenge mode was around, and Throne of the Tides in Cataclysm. Man, they chose some spicy dungeons in this pool, man. I am curious what some of these are going to look like. Waycrest Manor is one of the spiciest Mythic Plus, but also one of the most pretty Mythic Plus dungeons they've ever done. I love Waycrest. From an aesthetic point of view, it had so many issues with so many abilities and so many issues with crowded and tight spaces and bosses that are unforgiving in a lot of ways. It's cool. It's definitely going to be cool. I'm curious to see what it looks like and what they do with it, and how the affixes for season 3 line up with it. But that is one that like stands out as a highlight for me in this whole thing. Which one stands out for you, Jason, in all these?
Well, I gotta say, I really like this pool. I think, at least at first glance, right? There's nothing that I look at and I go, like season 4 of Shadowlands when we had the community. Let's vote on it, and then we get Grimrail Depot. Even though that turned out to really not be a bad Mythic Plus, but I digress a little bit.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Infinite we knew was going to be in, right? Like, and then it was the question of, okay, are there more Dragonflight dungeons that are going to return? Are we going to get season 1 dungeons back? Some smattering of like maybe a couple season 1 and season 2 dungeons, and then some other stuff. The answer is no, which I think is probably good. I mean, these are all dungeons that we haven't had in the pool in a while, right? So, there are portals to go get, or teleports to go get, right? Because we didn't have them in BFA. So that's interesting. I mean, Waycrest Manor, I think, is just an incredible dungeon in terms of overall design. It probably could use a bit of a tightening up in terms of some tech, although we don't have Twilight Dev, so you're not going to be shooting stuff in the basement while you're out in the courtyard. So that's probably good. Taldazar is another dungeon, I think, like just visually incredible. I mean, the more time passes from BFA and the more dungeons and stuff from BFA they put back into relevance, it's like, man, BFA really got a bad rap in a lot of ways. Dude. Like 8.0 8.0 was bad. I'm not going to act like 8.0 was what it needed to be, but BFA got a bad rap. There was a lot of good content in that expansion, and I really did like a lot of stuff about it. I think Waycrest and Taldazar have really incredible potential as modern keystones. They were good dungeons in their day, and the last time we saw them, we had that wacky seasonal affix where you could make the portals through Nyalotha to where you wanted to go. So I have kind of good memories of them. We're not going to have that in season 3 of Dragonflight, but Darkheart Thicket, I think, is fine. It never really was notable as a keystone dungeon. I mean, the Legion keystones were weird because they grafted the keystone system on top of existing dungeons that had been designed, right? So they didn't really sing in the way that BFA and more modern keystone dungeons have. But I mean, Darkheart Thicket, I think, is a really cool dungeon, and it's a great inclusion conceptually for this tier. It belongs this season with, the World Tree raid and all that stuff. So that's really cool. Blackrock Hold is a great dungeon. It tells an awesome story. I love the aesthetic. Again, very thematically appropriate. It's, very Night Elven. Thinking about Sanguine Week and the hallway. Like, we tell the horror stories of this on the show all the time of Sanguine's very dungeon dependent. And then you have the hallway with the worm tongue dudes, right? That don't move and they just throw stuff at you and you kill them too close together. But Sanguine's been nerfed a lot, but still, I will never not think about that when I think about that dungeon. I think Everbloom and Throne of the Tides are real wild cards. These are very old dungeons. Everbloom is in the time walking pool, so you probably have stepped in it recently if you've done any Warlords time walking. Could be very interesting for routing, and there is also the optional boss in there, which I don't know how they incorporate that into Keystone. Is it going to be there? Is it going to be non-optional? Is it just not going to be there at all? I guess we'll see once it pops up on PTR. Everbloom is really dense, man. There's a lot of mobs in there, and that might make routing really kind of touchy depending on what the forces count ends up looking like. Because, I mean, back in the day, we used to just cheese it, right? You could jump up the wall to first boss, and you just never do that whole wing. They fixed that, so you can't do that anymore, and you're probably not going to be doing that in Keystone. But, that's a lot of trash to move through, and that can be really touchy. So that'll be interesting. And Throne of the Tides, man.
Dude,
I don't know.
So this is the spicy one. This is the one to me where I'm like, this is the Grimrail Depot of this lineup for me. All right.
Yeah, kind of. Like, also has an optional boss. Another dungeon with an optional boss.
Yep. Where I'm like, okay, the optional boss in this is the one that mind controls people by throwing squids on their faces, which will be really interesting to see. But this is the dungeon to me that I dreaded in Cataclysm. Through Cataclysm, having to run this dungeon to me was always a negative. I didn't like time walking versions of it. I didn't like any of it. It is a good dungeon that is well designed as far as content goes, but if players are not aware of what this trash does, or where a gauntlet is, or like what's happening at all, like if they don't have some sort of knowledge of that dungeon and actually memorized a route and worked their way through it, you suffer through this dungeon. And not to mention, the jellyfish elevator is going to be a fun thing for people to wait around on Mythic Plus and Burn Timer. Like,
hopefully they'll just like put a switch in there so you can just like stand on it and turn it on.
Oh my God.
I'm Throne of the Tides is going to need some work, man.
Yep.
And there are packs of stuff that just like heal each other nonstop, so you got to have plenty of interrupts going. There's the mob that puts the green poison on the ground that's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
There's the gauntlet hallway up to
There's two gauntlet hallways.
fight.
There's two of them.
Like, yeah. I don't know. It's not one I would have picked. I feel like, I mean, Vortex Pinnacle has worked out okay, and they didn't really. I mean, they reworked it a bit, but not severely. I personally don't feel like we should be reaching back to Cataclysm for Keystone dungeons. I just don't. I feel like there's a clear difference in like BFA and more recent dungeons in terms of their Keystone viability than older ones. And I mean, there've been some cool experiments with it. I guess it's worth trying, but I don't know, man. I don't feel like Throne of the Tides is one we need to reach back to. And maybe, you know what, a lot of times when they end up reworking these, the ones that I'm scared of because they're old, they usually end up being on the easier side of the spectrum for the most part.
I hope so. Yeah.
We'll see what happens with Throne. I mean, there was a lot of sort of, I don't know, a lot of chatter that I was seeing in the community about maybe Seed of the Triumvirate coming back, and like, please do not ever do that. Like, it's a cool dungeon thematically, but I was just glad that wasn't on here because that was just a dead key at the end of Legion. That was not a key that you did. And not that I think they would leave it that way, but it's like for those of us who played back then, we don't ever want to do Seed of the Triumvirate ever again. So please leave that out. I mean, overall, I think there's more stuff in here that I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out as a Dragonflight Keystone than I am like, I don't want to do that. So at least for me, I guess that's a win. I mean, we won't really know till we get in there and we see what the affix combos are like. I mean, I guess we can pretty much assume there's not going to be a seasonal affix. But I would expect that the affix pool will rotate, that some stuff we have now will rotate out and some stuff we don't have now will rotate in. So, but that stuff will probably pop up on PTR a little bit later. That's not going to be on, week 1 PTR build.
Yeah, I would have rather seen Blackrock Caverns is what I would have rather seen. We're going to pick another dungeon from Cataclysm. I would have rather seen Blackrock Caverns.
That's a cool dungeon. Yeah,
it's a very cool dungeon.
That's a pretty good one. And I mean, I guess the problem with a lot of the older dungeons is they're very linear. So there's not like, they don't like to make dungeons as linear these days because they want to have branching paths for you to make decisions about routing. And I don't know. Blackrock Caverns is a really cool dungeon. And could be, I don't know. That could have potential as a Keystone. Some of those bosses, though, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to do like second boss in a Keystone. Like, but then again, I mean, all this stuff is also fair game for reworks, right? There's no reason why you have to maintain the way the boss actually was. It's a Keystone dungeon. You can rework it so that it's fun to play around.
Wasn't Zulamon part of It was. Zulamon was part of Cataclysm, too.
The ZA rework, when
like, where's the ZA rework, man? Like, let's get that in there as a Keystone.
Yeah, actually, Keystone ZA could be really cool. It kind of deserves it. It is one of, like, the best instances, I think, that they ever made.
I know.
It would be cool to see that ride again someday.
Yeah.
It would be kind of wacky as a Keystone. Like, imagine, I mean, it's so big. Like,
the double boss choice,
Yeah, I mean, I would respect the the experiment, even if it didn't turn out good, because it's ZA. I'm not going to complain about ZA having another shot.
I would absolutely throw in if you complete the dungeon under this timer, you get a bear mount. I would totally throw that in there as a thing. One bear mount drops. Like if you time the dungeon in under, let's say it's a 28-minute dungeon, and you time it in 23 minutes, a bear mount drops at the end. Period. It's just what it should be. And you're like, well, that's cool. Someone gets a new skin of that bear mount from the ZA bear mount.
Yeah,
like
to reskin it and recolor it, and I mean, it's ZA. You got to get a bear.
I know, you just got it. So I'd be down if they did that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So, anyways, Throne of the Tides to me is like, we'll see how this goes.
That's the wait and see.
I feel like there were better choices. I'm just saying, that's all it is. But yeah. All right, we also have more dragon riding stuff that's going to be coming up. There's going to be more races. There's going to be a fairy dragon riding mount. There's going to be new skins, including new customization colors for our favorite dragon riding mount, Jason. The Netherwing one is going to have new customization colors, which is exciting. Cool. So there's a lot of stuff with that going on. There's a new world boss that's going to be up. So obviously, it's a big sleeping bear that you poke, or a store, the hibernating, is going to be awoken, and you're going to have to deal with them and get to kill the big bear to get some big loot. So, that's another thing to look forward to. So, yeah. Overall, great little teaser. Looking forward to what's coming up. And man, there's going to be a lot more coverage happening in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just can't wait for something to hit PTR or even the CDN somewhere that Wowhead can start data mining it. I mean, data mining is fraught. It's a double-edged sword for sure. And there's stuff about data mining that I hate. And there's stuff that when it pops up on Wowhead, I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
But, when a PTR is new, man, they're just digging through stuff. And it's like, we don't know what this is, but this is in here somewhere. Like, that's always exciting to me. When it's the day a patch comes out and you're like, hey, here's the cinematic that plays at the end of this quest chain. Like, I think we can hold off on that. Like, it's out now. We're going to play it and watch the cinematic. But that's a whole other story. It's an exciting time when a big update like this is getting ready to spin up. And I'm sure there's a ton of stuff in here that they didn't mention. I mean, I was combing through the press site a little bit before we went on the air, just to see if there was any nuggets in there that weren't in like the main presentation. And there were some, including some screenshots or concepts, or maybe a bit of both, of Moonkin customization. So it looks like probably Druid's getting some ways to customize their Moonkin forms.
Please.
Like there's a screenshot on the press site that it's like in-game models, and like there's some like very different looks for like your antlers and just the overall color scheme of the feathers and different accessories like hanging from like the chest decorations and stuff. So that looks like that's coming in, and I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of other little tidbits and surprises like that. Yeah. There's a look at what the outdoor gear looks like, and it's pretty awesome, man. If that like night elf, like nature warrior druid kind of aesthetic appeals to you, then these sets look great. We saw little glimpses of the new tier sets or class sets, whatever you want to call them, that are coming out. They didn't really specify which was which. You could kind of get a feel for it just by looking at them and knowing what Warcraft classes are.
The Shaman one has wolves that are trying to escape from the shoulders, which look really cool.
Yeah, that's
cool.
For it. Yeah. I mean, the whole aesthetic for this, just really, this is like where I live. This is what I want, and I need a little bit of this every couple years or so. I need a Valshara or something. I remember how much I loved that when it came in Legion, and this is like, obviously this is very much tied into something like that. I'm really happy with it. I wouldn't say that this is like a huge surprise. It's not like they blew the doors off today and it's like, I can't believe that they're doing this. Those mad scientists over at Team 2 have really swerved me this time. Like, you told me the Farak was a bad guy I needed to be concerned about, and you told me the Emerald Dream was a thing that we needed to deal with, and I believed you. And I'm ready. I'm ready for all of this. I don't mean to say that in a snarky way or anything. I'm very happy about this. I love what I'm seeing from it, and I mean, I think what it really comes down to is like I'm ready to play this. Like, I mean, Embers of Neltharion is not that old, really. It came out in May, something like that. So it's about 4 months old, but I don't know. Maybe part of it is the item upgrade system. I feel like we just chewed this up, and maybe it was tuned too easy. Maybe it was too easy to get power. I don't know, but I think all that stuff just kind of artificially extends the content anyway. It's not, tuning, making stuff too hard to kill so that it lives longer than it's supposed to. That's not fun. But I don't know. It's something about it. It's just like it feels like the tale of Embers has been really short-lived, and I think it's a combination of many factors. But this looks really cool. This is exactly the kind of thing that I was wanting to see and kind of expecting.
Yeah, so good news for you, Jason. The public test realm for Dragonfire 10.2.0 is ready to be installed inside of your launcher right now if you select it.
Cool.
So that's something.
Servers are probably not up yet,
but
you know, as long as we're getting closer. And if you can install it, that means somebody can data mine it.
Exactly. So all that stuff should be kicking off shortly, which means we should probably move towards the end of the show. I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons before we do. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a shout out to Alianas, Arajian, Butter, Celian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, and Vespin. Thank you so much for everything you contribute, and thank you so much to all of our patrons for all that you contribute. It means a lot to us, helps us keep this show on the rails and running smooth, and bringing you the content like we did today. Our Patreon's live over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. And we don't have any new patrons this week, but yes, again, thank you for all of the incredible support you give towards the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, patrons. And yeah, I mean, you said it, like after all these years to do the show this consistently, I don't think it would be possible without the patron support. So thank you for hanging in there with us through the ups and downs of the game. And we certainly have had a lot, over the years, but, the support means a lot. It helps us keep the show consistent. And, man, this was a big one today for sure.
Yeah.
I think also it does help us have the flexibility to be like, you know what? Like, we think there's going to be a PTR announcement this week. Maybe we should hold back, and then we'll do a show about 2 patches at once.
Yep. And then next week, we'd talk about even more stuff. So, yeah, there's tons going on. But if you folks have enjoyed this episode, head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to leave us a review, you're going to have to go into your iTunes, your Apple Podcast, leave us those 5 stars. We appreciate them a lot. They mean a lot to us. And we read them here live. So this one comes in from JGrizzle99, entitled Best WoW Podcast Out There. Getting back into WoW after not playing for a few years, and this podcast has been extremely helpful. I have listened to a handful of podcasts over the last few weeks trying to catch up on all the new features of the game, and this podcast has helped me the most. You guys always go above and beyond when explaining things to new and returning players. Keep up the hard work. Thank you so much, JGrizzle99, for leaving us that 5-star, and I'm glad that we are able to help you out, and I'm glad that we stood out amongst all of those others as one that you found really helpful. So thanks so much. We appreciate the review.
Absolutely. Thank you for checking in, taking the time to let us know. It means a lot, and it helps us out for sure, and glad we could help you out, because as we were talking about with all the we're talking about public events a lot on the show today. It's a lot to navigate, and yeah, sometimes I log in on an alt that hasn't done all this stuff, and I'm like, what even is all of this?
Yeah.
Why are these quest markers pink? What's happening?
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like, that is one of our goals, certainly, is to kind of provide you some signposts along the way of okay, what's important or fun or cool to do in the game. And, what does this mean for my experience as a player? What is this feature? And sometimes I feel like, man, there's so many features in Dragonflight, especially. It's like, I don't think the game really tells you. So sometimes you just have to chew through it yourself. And, that's kind of what we do around here. And then we can talk about it.
Yeah. All right. If you want to, contact the show, like I said, you can send us your feedback or reach out to us through thestartingzone.com or through our email at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone, or you can join our Discord at thestartingzone.com/discord, where you can join that server. Man, we appreciate all of our reviews. They do help boost us up those charts. So that's another great way to let us know you're enjoying the stuff that we do, because it helps us out too. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, some, hoodies or shirts or whatnot, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone, and check out all the designs you can get. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. Always talking WoW and whatever else I'm getting into. You can find me on Twitch and on YouTube at Shieldwald on both of those sites as well, although streams are suspended for now. I continue to have bizarre issues with my internet provider, and I don't feel like it's worth pushing the button at the moment. So continuing to monitor that situation. I wish I could be streaming this week because we got Twitch drops going on, and I'm just kind of hanging out and doing very chill stuff in WoW with gearing up alts and stuff. So it would be great, but my ISP has other ideas. So check out the video channels. They hopefully will not be down forever. They do exist. You can go follow them, and I will put stuff on them again someday, hopefully.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. I have a Twitch channel at twitch.tv/SpencerHD and a YouTube channel at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.